Welcome to Independence Nation on the Light of Life Network. In October of 1975, approximately 2 weeks before I was born, the murder of a 15-year-old girl, Martha Moxley, shocked the Greenwich, Connecticut community. Today we'll take a look at the turn of events and evidence that ultimately led to a conviction. As you can see here, I just wanted you to see the face of Martha Moxley, and this is what we call the Martha Moxley murder. So let's go ahead and delve into the information today. Just who was Martha Moxley? Martha Moxley was a 15-year-old, as I previously stated. She was originally from San Francisco, California. She lived in Greenwich, Connecticut for approximately 1 year. She was said to be very outgoing, and by her mother's viewpoint, she had the cutest or a extremely cute girlish figure. Now, it's also important to state exactly what happened, and we'll kind of move forward into it and then basically state the other parties involved. But it was October 30th, to be exact, on 1975. Martha Moxley and some friends went out for an evening of mischief night pranks before stopping at the home of Tommy and Michael Skakel. Now, it was mischief night. A lot of us are familiar with mischief night, the night before Halloween. So they went out for some pranks and went over a friend's house, or what she thought was a friend, Tommy and Michael Skakel's home. So let's take a look at who was Tommy Skakel. Now, Tommy Skakel was the original suspect in Martha Moxley's murder. Let's go ahead and put that out front and center to begin with. He was also a classmate of Martha Moxley, and he lived near the Moxley home. So he lived nearby her home. He had access to her on a regular basis. Now, it's also important to point out that the murder weapon, being a golf club, belonged to the Skakels. And we're going to delve into that information a little bit more. But let's move forward concerning Tommy Skakel. Now, detectives received written permission from Rustin Skakel. Now, Rustin Skakel was Tommy and Michael Skakel's father. And they gave the detectives permission to obtain Tommy's school medical and psychological records. And so they wanted to really jump into the information, see if Tommy had any mental problems, and they must have had some type of a tip concerning Tommy. That's the only thing I could think of. But let's move forward. Tommy Skakel continued concerning who he is, or was, should I say, that he gave a statement to the police that he had a school assignment due when he was with Martha Moxley that night. And therefore, because he said he had an assignment, he went in the house and that Martha left to go home. Turns out his statement was a lie. The police were able to contact his teacher, and she said that no such assignment existed. So my point is, if he didn't do anything, if he had no involvement in Martha Moxley's murder, why lie? Why make up some fallacy concerning what he had to do that night? So in some stories, and it is important for me to point this out, in some stories of the Martha Moxley murder, there were blood-soaked clothing, a t-shirt, pants, and shoes that were found in the Skakel's garbage that belonged to Tommy Skakel. Now, I must also point out that this point of the investigation was left out in other stories. But in a couple of stories that I looked at, there were blood-soaked clothing, t-shirt, pants, and shoes that belonged to Tommy Skakel that were found in the garbage of the Skakel home. So the other party involved, who was Michael Skakel. Well, Michael Skakel was the younger brother of Tommy Skakel. Obviously, he lived near the Moxley home. He had access to Martha Moxley, the same as his brother did. He also had access to the murder weapon. Once again, that murder weapon was a golf club, a specific golf club that came from the Skakel home to a specific and a piece to a specific set of golf clubs that belonged to the Skakels. Now, it was said that Michael Skakel was taking a ride. He was taking his cousin home at the time that Martha Moxley left Tommy and that she proceeded home. But others have said that he actually didn't go on the ride. He must have been let out of the car or something of that sort, but he did not take the ride to take his cousin home. Now, it's important to say that the Skakel brothers, both of the brothers, were viewed as troubled. They suffered from addictions and were placed in special schools throughout the course of their lives. Now, it's important also to say that there was a doctor that took a look at Tommy Skakel in particular and said that he had a propensity for genetic hedonism. Now, this is a desire for immediate pleasure or instant gratification. We're going to take a look at exactly who said that here in a few moments. It was a doctor by the name of Dr. Lessie who diagnosed Tommy in that way. So let's take a look at the Moxley murder timeline, what I like to call the Moxley murder timeline. On October the 30th, and as I previously stated, and this is the specific date, October the 30th, 1975, Martha and some friends went out for an evening of mischief night pranks before stopping at the home of Tommy and Michael Skakel, which turned out to be one of the worst decisions that this young woman could have made. Now, let's also proceed forward. On October the 31st, 1975, while walking through the Moxley's backyard, 15-year-old Sheila McGuire, which was a friend of Martha's, finds Martha dead under a pine tree. And she didn't just find her dead, ladies and gentlemen. She found her with her pants and undies pulled down, which would suggest that there was a sexual orientation involved in the incident or a crime of passion of some sort. But that's how she found her. Now, the murder weapon, as I stated, was a golf club, which was later matched to a set owned by the Skakel family. Now, January 20th, 1976, and it's important to remind yourself along the way on the course of this investigation that it began in 1975. We'll take a look at how long this investigation lasts and why it took so long. We'll take a look at that in the conclusion. But here on January 20th, 1976, the Greenwich police are contacted by Chris Roosevelt of the Whitby School. Now, Chris Roosevelt is the principal of the Whitby School at the time. He tells them that he will not release Tommy's school records without first speaking to the Skakels. Now, this stands out because Rustin Skakel had already given detectives the permission to take a look at Tommy's records. But as we can see here, Chris Roosevelt, the principal of Whitby School, is saying, I'm not going to give you the records. Perhaps he already knew that Rustin Skakel gave them permission. He's still basically denying until he gets permission from Rustin, or when he talks to Rustin specifically, then he will give Tommy's records. And there's a reason for that as well. We'll take a look at that here down the line. But he also states that if Tommy was arrested, he would be defended by a battery of lawyers who would claim the boy was temporarily insane. This is something here because not only was this young man viewed as troubled, this kind of brings up that maybe this young man did have more troubles than just school troubles, that maybe he had some type of mental problems of his mental capacity. So let's take a look further. On January 22nd, 1976, Rustin Skakel formally withdraws permission to release Tommy's school records. So first he gives the detectives permission, and it is my view that he perhaps spoke to the principal of the Whitby School, and he advised him, do not turn over these records. Obviously, there was something in the records that they didn't want the detectives to see. March 15th, 1976, Tommy Skakel was given a psychological exam in New York City under a false name. Once again, if you truly believe that your son is okay and everything's all right with your son, why would you need to give him the examination under a false name unless you think that something may occur within this examination? On March 28, 1976, Rustin Skakel tells the Moxleys that Tommy has passed a psychological exam but refuses to give the results to police on advice of counsel. So this is perhaps his way of saying, look somewhere else. I don't want you looking at my son. Basically a way to trick the Moxleys. Don't look at my son. Look someplace else. Tommy's okay. But we're going to take a look at this. Perhaps Tommy wasn't okay. April 30th, 1976, Tommy Skakel was admitted to Greenwich Hospital. So now this young man, approximately 1 month later, who is said to be okay, evaluated, and supposed to be all right, is now admitted to the Greenwich Hospital. May 11th, 1976, the Skakels receive a full psychological report on Tommy Skakel from Dr. Lessie. And this is what I alluded to earlier. Dr. Lessie diagnosed Tommy with the genetic hedonism, the propensity for instant gratification. As we have already took a look at, that Martha Moxley was found with her pants and undies pulled down. Perhaps this genetic hedonism comes into play with this incident, with this situation. So, March 5th, 1978. Once again, let's take a look at, this is now 3 years later. It started in 1975. We're already in 1978. It's going to go a lot further, ladies and gentlemen, but let's take a look at here. March 5th, 1978, Michael Skakel. Now, Michael comes on the scene, and he starts acting out, and it's my personal opinion that these boys were acting out because of being involved, or some way involved, in Martha Moxley's murder. But on March 5th, 1978, Michael Skakel was arrested in Windham, New York, on charges of unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, speeding, failure to comply with an officer, and DWI. So now Michael comes on the scene, and he's beginning to act out, and we're going to see some more from Michael here in a moment. June 1978, Tommy Skakel is expelled from college, and for academic reasons. They didn't give any other reason but academic reasoning, but he is expelled from college. It is my personal opinion that there was more to the story. Now, mid-November 1978, Michael Skakel comes back on the scene. Michael Skakel escapes from the Elan School and is returned a few days later. So now we have, once again, Michael Skakel acting out, but he doesn't just do it once. He does it again on November 29th, 1978. Michael Skakel escapes Elan School again. But he didn't stop there. On December the 12th, 1978, Michael Skakel and his Houdini Act escaped Elan School for a third time. So now we have these two with a propensity for perhaps genetic hedonism, and they're troubled young men, and they're beginning to act out in their lives, particularly Michael, as he begins to get in trouble with police and escaping the Elan school, which was actually for his benefit because of his addictive personality. But on April 30th, 1991, once again, this started in 1975. We are now at 1991. The Greenwich Police and the state of Connecticut they now on this date announce that they are reinvestigating evidence in the case of Martha Moxley. So, and it's my personal opinion, by looking at the records, they decided to reinvestigate this situation because other voices were getting involved. And what we find that investigative journalists and different people, detectives from other cities and states like Detroit, Michigan, and different places were getting involved in the investigation, and something was bound to come to light, excuse me, during the course of this case. So November 26, 1995, now 20 years later, Len Levitt writes an article for Newsday magazine in which he states that Tommy Skakel has changed. He has now changed 20 years later his story about what he was doing the night of the murder. So we all know that he lied to begin with. He didn't go in the house. He didn't have a paper to write on blah, 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 whatever he said it was on. So now we're taking a look at, once again, Tommy Skakel has lied. And he changes his story. June 1998, Superior Court Judge George Thiem starts an 18-month one-man grand jury review of information gathered by Frank Garr and the state attorney's office. So now all hands on deck. Everyone's getting involved. This investigation is reopened, and now the big boys are getting in on the game. So November 1998, the grand jury interviewed more than 30 witnesses in connection with the case. Some reportedly are former residents and staff of the Elan School in Poland Springs, Maine, and that's where Michael Skakel was. Now, this was at the same time counsel for Michael Skakel, headed by Stanford-based defense attorney Mickey Sherman, has made a motion to suppress all testimony from staff and residents of the Elan School, citing doctor-patient confidentiality. So what did Mickey Sherman know? Mickey Sherman knew at this time that Michael Skakel had been going around saying that he was in on the murder or had something to do with the murder of Martha Moxley. And he tries to suppress the evidence, suppress the testimony by putting in his motion. So December 10th, 1998, in his ruling, Superior Court Judge Edward Stotterlink stated that the owner of the center where the state alleges former Greenwich resident Michael Skakel may have made admissions as to the murder must give grand jury testimony. So now the grand jury is bringing the people in to give testimony that are witnesses to Michael Skakel's statement. March 11th, 1999, Suffolk County, New York, Judge Michael Mullen, and this is where I have to say that some political influence came involved in the case, where Suffolk County, New York Judge Michael Mullen ruled that private investigator Willis Krebs must appear before the grand jury in Bridgeport. Why? Because Willis Krebs is the investigator for working with Mickey Sherman, and he is well aware of the statements that Michael Skakel had made at the Elan School concerning his involvement in Martha Moxley's murder. March 24th, 1999, when Krebs appeared before the grand jury, Willis Krebs refused to divulge those names on the basis that it was confidential information, but was later ordered to do so. So he has full information of this man's confession. So August 5th, 1999, the state appellate court has reversed the state. Now get this, this is where more political mishegoss has been involved in the case. The state appellate court has reversed a state superior court judge's order that a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center's owner must testify what he knows about admissions a suspect allegedly made concerning the Martha Moxley murder. So now they want to suppress this testimony of the owner of the rehabilitation center because he knows and is full aware that Michael Skakel has made the admission of killing Martha Moxley, but it doesn't end there. So let's take a look. August 5th, 1999. It remains unclear, however, whether the appellate court decision would affect testimony, and the grand jury has already heard from others who attended the rehab center with Skakel. So the grand jury, thankfully, gets out ahead of the appellate court and is already hearing the testimonies of those who were at the Elan school, those who were colleagues of Michael Skakel, and heard him admit to Martha Moxley's murder. So January 19th, 2000. Now this is 25 years later, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this incident began in 1975. We are now at the year 2000, where 25 years later. January 19th, 2000, at a news conference which was held in Bridgeport, Connecticut, prosecutors announced that an arrest warrant had been issued for an unnamed, get this, juvenile. Now, I was born in 1975. In 2000, late 2000, I turned 25 years old. Michael Skakel had at least been 10 years older than me, so they're saying that this is an unnamed juvenile. Attorney Mickey Sherman told reporters that his client, Michael Skakel, was on his way to Connecticut to surrender to authorities. But ladies and gentlemen, at this point, he is not a juvenile. This is just January 19, 2000. This is at 3 p.m. Greenwich, Connecticut. Michael Skakel surrendered to Greenwich police. Skakel was charged as a juvenile, originally I should say, charged as a juvenile. The Skakel family posts $500,000 bail, and he is released. Seemed like things were going to go his way if he would have been charged as a juvenile. So March 14th, 2000, in a 4-minute court appearance, Skakel heard the charges against him read aloud and was advised of his constitutional rights. So they didn't waive the reading of the charges. He listens. It only takes 4 minutes. That's truly brief. But because this is a juvenile case, Michael Skakel was entitled to what is called a reasonable cause hearing, which was held on June 20th, 21st, and 28th of the year 2000. So let's take a look at here. To reiterate, June 20th, 21st, and 28th, 2000, Michael Skakel appeared for a probable cause hearing, which means he was first looked at as being in the case of a juvenile, although this man had to be at least approximately 30-something years old at the time. So he's got his hearing here, and they're taking a look at this. And now, on August 17th, 2000, judge decides Skakel will stand trial. Now this is very good here, because now we're moving this investigation forward. You see, it is 25 years later, August 17th, the judge decides Skakel will stand trial. Stating evidence from a probable cause hearing showed well beyond mere suspicion that Michael Skakel could have caused the death of Martha Moxley. What they were hoping for, his attorneys were hoping that during this probable cause hearing that the situation would be dropped with lack of evidence. But the decision is there's well beyond mere suspicion, and so there will be a trial. On January 31st, 2001, Kennedy nephew Michael Skakel will be tried as an adult in the 1975 murder of Greenwich teenager Martha Moxley. So now they decided, hold on, this man's not a teenager. He's not going to be tried as a juvenile. He's going to be tried as an adult. Now, in case you missed what I said first, Kennedy nephew. This is very important because, as we spoke of, Tommy and Michael Skakel's father is Rushton, or was Rushton Skakel. His sister, Ethel, married Bobby Kennedy. Thus, the Skakels and the Kennedys are kin. And perhaps that may have been the reason why there was so much political involvement in the case. So let's go ahead and move forward. February 14th, 2001. This case started in 1975. We're now at 2001. Michael Skakel appeals judge's decision to try him as an adult. So they weren't going to get away with him being tried as a juvenile. There's no way. He's 30-something years old at this time. He's being tried as an adult. February 21st, 2001, Michael Skakel is charged as an adult, like he should have been. And May 4th, 2002, now this is 27 years later, trial took place in Connecticut State Superior Court in Norwalk with Judge John Kavanewski presiding. Now, I must say, Judge Kavanewski must have did an excellent job because, as you can see here, on June the 7th, 2002, with the family and friends in the courtroom, the 12-person jury found Michael Skakel guilty as charged of the murder in the first degree. So now he's made his admissions and he's found guilty. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, it is my personal opinion that Michael Skakel did not act alone, because I have a problem with the evidence led back to the golf club, which this person, whoever did this, brutally beat Martha Moxley so badly that it broke the golf club. The remaining part of the golf club was the very pole of the club. Whoever this person was took this golf club, the remaining part, and jabbed it through her throat. So it is my personal opinion that if he did this, which I believe he had something to do with it, but I don't believe he acted alone. And as I stated, I previously stated, that clothing were found, bloody clothing, T-shirt, jeans, and shoes that belonged to Tommy Skakel. So in conclusion, let's take a look at a couple of things here. Now, this case should have been an open and shut case due to the evidence. But as I said, this was a prominent family. The case took a long time because the Skakels are kin to the Kennedys. But it is a good thing those who came forward heard Michael Skakel's admission and came forward. But once again, this should have been an open and shut case. So if you would like more information on this Martha Moxley murder, you can log on to our website at www.lolmin.org. Now on the website, you can click the documentaries page. You can watch the full documentary of the Martha Moxley case. And you can scroll down where there is a link that says Moxley Murder Timeline. We gave you a little bit of the timeline here, but if you'd like to see the full timeline from 1975 to 2002, the whole 27-year case, the whole 27-year timeline, you can click that link and it'll take you to the the Moxley Murder Timeline. So I'm Keith Pitts. I hope this has been informative. Once again, I'm Keith Pitts. I'll see you next time here on Independence Nation.